The Color Child Welfare Conference is the only conference in the state of Wisconsin that convenes to focus solely on the needs of Black children, youth, and their families who are involved in the foster care system. On May 8, 2017, almost 400 community stakeholders and 67 local organizations came together at the Milwaukee Art Museum for food, fun, laughter, and training by a number of industry experts in the interest of preserving and supporting Black families. We certainly hope to see you at next year's conference. Enjoy the video.
Recognizing familial child sexual exploitation risk-induced patterns. Are you at the right place? Okay, awesome. I'm Dana Worrell Patterson, and I have the pleasure of working this afternoon with Ms. Rosalind Metcalf, yes, and Martha Love. So we will be the three faces that you will, for the next hour and 50 minutes, say hour and 50 minutes. Yes, we're going to share with you what we know so far, that we can fit in an hour and 50 minutes. So I just want you to lean in. If you have questions, jot them down. There will be opportunities for you to ask questions, but we really want you to lean in. If you listen at all to Jermaine Reed, you know that this is near and dear to his heart, as it is with all of ours. We're here because we're rolling up our sleeves so that we can do something about these ills in our community, correct? In addition to that, you've probably read the bio. I am the chairperson of the Human Trafficking Task Force of Greater Milwaukee, and I have had the pleasure to just see a conversation go from mute to being a household conversation. So we're excited about that. And in addition, I'm the chairperson and I'm not the chair, well, yes I am, I'm wearing all those hats. I'm the founder of Foundations for Freedom, which is designed to strengthen women and girls, reduce vulnerabilities, and ultimately to eradicate human trafficking. So I want us to just share with us who we are and what we do, and then we'll move on in.
Thank you, Dana. Dana is a little bit more than that. Dana is our solid rock. She keeps us glued. As Dana said, my name is Martha Love. I'm one of 5 founders of the Human Trafficking Task Force of Greater Milwaukee. And our efforts, sitting at the kitchen table talking, has had a statewide impact. People will not abuse our children. People will not pimp our girls and boys out without the human trafficking knowing without the task force knowing about it, plus you. I want you to know today that I am very, very angry. And when you leave here, I want you to be angry, but moreover, I want you to put that anger into good use. If you have to do door to door in your neighborhood, because we have children that are brought into the commercial sex trade in Milwaukee at 8 years old, boys and girls. Among you, we have women that have encountered incest from 4 years old. Today, they just don't have the strength to stand up and be seen. So as I describe their story, I want you to know that they really appreciate it, but they just cannot stand up today. They're here among us. So, like I said, I'm one of the founders, and for 10 years, Dana and I and several others have been on this journey to bring all of us to this point. And I know a lot of you are kind of hardcore, work with kids, badass kids, and some other kinds of things. But we have to look at children differently. Long time ago, 100 years ago,
kind of share more of that.
I'm gonna stop. Here's Roz.
That's good. Hi, Hi, I'm Rosalind Metcalf. I am also a part of the Human Trafficking Task Force. I'm an author. I assist Pastor Dana. Yes. Um, I do a lot of different things. I'm also the founder of Healing Starts Today, and we just focus on the how, not the whys, but the how. How did this child get to this place? How did this lady, how did this man get to this place? And in that way, we can heal as a community. Thank you.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, ladies. So here we go. And when I tell you that we have been challenged, we've been challenged. So I just had to pause and say, okay, we are going to give it all that we have so that we can share what we know so far. And it is a good thing. Sexual abuse in the family is one of the most perplexing and confusing problems facing our families. Say perplexing. It is perplexing, and it is very confusing when we attempt to unravel what happens in a home and the why and the how, what is going on. And while it is difficult to fully assess the extent of the problem, the number of families affected by this phenomenon are staggering. And I have been reading a lot of information. And there's not one study that is going to give us all of the answers. So we have to kind of settle into that. And we also know that human trafficking, sexual violence, these are those hidden secrets. So some people come forward and some people don't. And the numbers are alarming. And while the overwhelming majority of these children that are abused, it is usually by who? Someone they know. Let's bring it in even further. Someone they know, but also, where? Family, church, youth leaders. We know the perpetrators go where children are. So may I have an assessment of who's in the room? Who works directly with children? Oh, wow, awesome. Who's a pastor, youth leader, Boys and Girls Club, those? Okay. Who else is in the room? Survivors. Survivors are in the room. Just nod. Okay. Who else is in the room? Babysitters. Why are you here? Why this class? Why this session? Anyone? You have teenage girls. Okay. Anyone else? Yes. Social worker, thank you. Who else? Why this class? Okay. To have a greater understanding, yes, awesome. Who else? Come on, yes. Okay. So working with victims of abuse. Awesome. I saw your hand.
So I work with foster and adoptive parents who oftentimes have these kids in their homes and they're not really sure kind of how to understand or make sense of or help support these youth.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Okay. That are sexually abused or trafficked? Trafficked. Okay, awesome. Anyone else? That's awesome. We have a nice wide range here. And we know that child abuse, sexual child abuse affects all walks of life. It affects all walks of life, and even when we speak about human trafficking, we know that the borders have been erased. that it used to be when we first started, Martha and I, we were beating the drum saying, not in our neighborhood, not in yours. Not in our neighborhood, not in yours. And at that time, we were talking about a $32 billion worldwide industry. Well, putting our heads together, we're thinking if this is only inner city black girls with no father, poor, probably eating flour and water, the $32 billion, it has to be far greater than that. It has to be. And then U.S. Attorney J.B. Van Hollen, we were at a luncheon with him, and he said, human trafficking is occurring in all 72 counties. We were like, ah. The heavens opened, because that was exactly what we needed to hear. We knew that it was far greater than just the inner city. And so for all of you, you may come to the table with some preconceived notions and the way a person looks or the way they talk. But when I was in a room of 15 girls and I asked how many of them had been touched inappropriate, how many do you think raised their hand? 14 of the 15 girls raised their hand and began to share, most for the very first time. Now, these are girls who have been acting out. The teachers had identified them. They were, they were the ones that were probably cussing and fussing. But what I learned from that aha moment was that they wanted us to ask the right question. They were saying, don't kick me out this time. I just need someone to ask me what's really going on. And they would have learned from that question that it was their grandfather that was touching them. And her grandmother said, get out of my face. Your grandfather would never do that. You're just fast. Now, she's at school acting out. But at home, she's going back to her grandfather, and she had the nerve, the courage to share it with her grandmother, and her grandmother said, get out of my face. Another one, it was her mother's boyfriend. And I think about them quite a bit, because here's her mother probably working, trusting her boo to her daughters, and he's violating them. And then you remember Precious, right? You remember the movie Precious, where she knew that her husband was touching her daughter, but she had her own stuff to deal with, and she cried out, what about me? Who's gonna love me if I do something about it? Who's gonna love me? So we're dealing with complexity. It's perplexing. And we're going to need a lot of patience as we continue to unravel this long title of Recognizing Familial Child Sexual Exploitation and the Risk-Induced Patterns. Sexual child abuse is a painful, traumatic family secret that has rippling effects upon the entire family. Now, we know for sure in the African American family, who has heard what's said in our house, what's done in our house, stays in our house? Who's heard that? Absolutely. How non-black families, who has heard that? What's said in our house stays in our house. So the secret, the role of the secret, we're going to talk about that as well. So as I'm going to give you the backdrop of the complexity of what's going on, and then Roz is going to come forward and share how we can just walk through her shoes and walk in her shoes. Then Martha, because when I say different things have been poking us, There's a woman that was also going to share today, but I believe that the trauma showed up and she left. So we're going to share another story, and then Martha is going to seamlessly connect how human trafficking also is a continuation within the pattern of sexual abuse within the family. So there's an innocence that is stolen. And the more we travel around the state, and we go and we learn and we hear presentation after presentation, you have to have some tough skin. When you hear that it's a 4-year-old, she was 4 years old when her father sold her repeatedly. And when I was looking at this woman who is a mastermind creatively, I said, something is going on. And I'm just looking at her thinking, something is going on. Well, when she shared her story that her father sold her repeatedly at 4 and into her adulthood, into her teenage years, and then when she became a teenager, she decided she was finished with men, she hated them, and she said that she was going to choose a life of women, and then that there was a body of people who prefer women, girls, who have chosen the life of homosexuality because they say that they will, and these are her words, F the homosexuality out of her. When I looked at her, what I was seeing was a woman that was trying to cope. And she said that it's a matter of staying a little bit buzzed, so that the drugs can keep her associated, so that she will not disassociate. So she stays high so that her brain will, so that she can continue to interact. So these, we're talking about patterns. So when you interact with the person that is high, well, why? What's going on? Can you tell me, as you build that relationship? And I hope you appreciate the backdrop, because we were told that we were unable to use our PowerPoint at the time. So we made lemons. Is that all right? Okay. And interestingly enough, every 98 seconds, another American is sexually assaulted. Say 98 seconds. Every 98 seconds and every 8 minutes, that victim is a child. Every 98 seconds, someone is assaulted. Every 8 minutes, that is a child. And what does that look like? It looks like 1 in 4 girls, 1 in 5 to 6 boys under the age of 18. So 1, 2, 3, 4, stand up. 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 1, 2, 3, 4, right there. Please stand up. 1, 2, 3, 4, stand up, please. 1, 2, 3, 4 on the end. Please stand up. 1, 2, 3, next to you. 4, yes, stand up. You see how that works? It's very close. 1 in 4 girls will be sexually assaulted before they turn 18. And boys, I appreciate you listening back there, because it's 1 in 5 or 6 for you.
98 seconds.
Have a seat, ladies. The mighty Maasai tribes in Africa had a traditional greeting they passed between warriors. Kasirian Ingira, one would always say to another, it means, and how are the children? Kasirian and Gira, and how are the children? This traditional greeting among the Maasai, acknowledging the high values that were placed on the children, and even those with no children would reply, the children are doing well. And how are the children? If we had that as a priority, and how are the children? And how are the children? And that we could reply back that the children are well. Would we be able to say that? I don't think so. That the children are well. So I appreciate that you're here because we don't take for granted that it's one person that can make a difference. Hopefully you'll be able to add a few more things into your toolkit to move you along the path of, and the children are well. And the children are well. So I'm just giving you a backdrop. Let's talk about it. And then Roz will be coming. 98 seconds. Every 98 seconds, someone is being sexually assaulted. So what exactly defines sexual abuse, child sexual abuse? How would you do that? How would you define it? Anyone? Child sexual abuse, yes. It could be a touch. What else? Yes. Exposure. Exactly. Yes. Exposure to pornographic material and what? Sexual acts. What else? What have you come in contact with? Don't be shy. Rape. Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about it. And then I also want us to be mindful that perpetrators of child sexual abuse are often related to the victim. We said that. And the prevailing myth has been that children are sexually abused by strangers, stranger danger. When it comes within human trafficking, people think of the movie Taken. No, it's not like that. It's usually they're pimped out by someone they know within the family or someone they know. In fact, 93% are known to victims, 7% are strangers, 59% are acquaintances, 34% are family members, and most of those perpetrators are a parent. Offenders are overwhelmingly males, ranging from adolescents to elderly, and this is what has been very important when we think about human trafficking and has given us another perspective, that those who have been molested, those who have been touched inappropriate, some go on to do the same thing. And I was at a meeting, and this gentleman said, I've been watching you. You have? Okay, why? He said, I noticed that you usually have women and girls with you. You usually have women with you, that you take care of the women. He said, what about the men? I said, well, what about the men? He said, well, we have a story too. And as he began to tell his story, he was groomed at 12 years old also. And it was something that he learned throughout the process of how we would say not to treat a person, but he was groomed in that. And so we'll see that along the way. So we know that it's touching. It's an intention of sexually arousing the child or providing sexual arousal for the offending party, kissing by one whose purpose is similar to touching, fondling of genitals or other parts of the body in a sexual or prolonged manner. It's overt contact, such as oral, genital contact, manual stimulation of genitals, or intercourse. Any behavior that is intended to stimulate the child sexually. I know of a girl, she had a hard life. I met her, my friend was a foster mom, and her mother used to have her sit on the edge of the bed and watch her mother perform sex acts. So it wasn't strange to me when I had an opportunity to go into detention and she was there. One, she was just out of her mind, but the schizophrenia that had shown up as well, and all the other the mental illness that had come along. Excuse me? 8 minutes. Showing pornography, photographing the child in a sexual manner or talking sexually to a child, inappropriately watching a child undress or use the bathroom. And what we know for sure is that you can't stop what you don't see. You can't stop it. And that's why we're lifelong learners on this journey. And so Roz is going to come and give us an opportunity as a survivor leader, as one who is thriving, but she's going to give us an opportunity to walk in her shoes. Rosalind Metcalf.
Thank you. Hi, how y'all doing? Awesome. So I really appreciate this platform for a couple of different reasons. You know, as Dana just said, a lot of times you can't stop it. Things happen, you know. A lot of times it's happening from other kids. And kids will be kids, they'll do silly things. We can't watch their every move. Sometimes you're in the kitchen cooking, or you got company over, the kids are downstairs hanging out, or maybe it's a situation where you're speaking about the young lady where you got a man in the house, maybe he's your husband now. So he may have to get left at home with your daughter at some point, or your son at some point. So we can't protect them from everything, but being able to identify certain signals will be very helpful to your child, and just providing a safe space for them. So before I go any further, I would like to ask that as I tell my story, or the part of the story that I'm gonna share, try not to judge me. Try not to judge my family, and just be very empathetic. So I come from a pretty good family. My mom was a school teacher. My father was in the military, and he worked for the state. I wasn't in foster care. My parents wasn't on drugs. Overall, a pretty middle-income family. So I would probably fall under the category of, oh no, not my child, you know, which I'm sure many of you would feel like that. My parents was working a lot, so they would take me over to my father's sister's house, and she had a son there that was actually the youngest of her kids. So he was home alone a lot. So I don't know what that did for him mentally, but he began to touch me. Now, by the grace of God, he didn't go as far as he could have went, but it was extremely, extremely traumatizing for me. This is my older cousin. I'm coming from a family that I'm surrounded by a lot of love. There's a lot of, you know, just a really comfortable and happy environment. So to go from that to somebody just kind of like jumping out from around the corner, was more traumatizing than anything that I could begin to explain to you. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't want my father to flip the world upside down. He's big, strong, he loves me, I look just like him. And I knew that it would just devastate him, and it would cause a lot of issues for the family. So for that reason, I was afraid to tell him. And I was afraid to tell my mother because she was just a sweet little lady. And I didn't want to break her heart. To a certain degree, I felt like that was my fault, what happened. When I would cry because I didn't want to go over there, I was being told that I was spoiled. I was being told that I shouldn't make other people feel uncomfortable because they're less fortunate. Or, these things that they were saying, it wasn't to tear me down, but the seeds that it was planting inside of me made me feel as though what was happening to me somehow was my fault. And by me telling someone, I would be creating more issues, if that makes sense. And a lot of kids feel like that. There was a lot of effects behind that. One of the things that did was it caused a disconnection between me and my mother. Any little thing that didn't go my way, I would say, I connected that to, this is why you were not able to detect the reason that I was crying, the reason that I didn't want to go there to their house. This is why you were not able to see that. Why should I have to have told you? A lot of kids feel like that, and that's why I'm telling you this. A lot of kids feel like, why should I have to spell this out for you? Can't you see what's happening? Can't you see the change in me? If you love me, why can't you see the hurt in my eyes? This is how your kids feel. This is how I felt. And this is coming from a house surrounded with love and support. So keep that in mind. There was no healing for me from that. And I don't blame anyone. I know as an adult that they would have helped me, but I was not able to speak for all of the reasons that I told you, and because what words do you use to describe that? Our kids don't have the words to describe what is actually happening to them. There is no words. Like, I'm grown. I've been working with kids for years. I've worked in mental health. I've worked with people that struggle with behavioral issues. I've done workshops. I've done a lot of different things. I advocate for people. And when it's so funny, not to get off track, but Martha Love just asked me, and a couple of other people asked me about my level of comfort. So with all the things that I've done, you would think that I would be comfortable when I stand up and speak about myself. But there is no comfort in it. There's no words really to describe it. I'm just forcing out some things in hopes that you will grab onto something and go out and use it and go out and help somebody restore their self. But there's no level of comfort in this. That's an uncomfortable space to be in, even as an adult, but especially for a child. So yeah, it's uncomfortable for me to speak about it, and it'll probably always be uncomfortable, and it should be uncomfortable for you to hear about it. But you have to force yourself to have these conversations no matter how uncomfortable it may be. Because my parents wouldn't have thought that this could have happened to their child. Your kids aren't telling you everything. So we have to pay attention to certain signals. If your baby is crying, I don't care if you got to go to work. Amen. I don't care if you got dressed up and you paid $150 for a ticket to get somewhere, or you got a trip planned out the country that you've been planning for a year. If your baby is crying and is saying that they don't want to go somewhere, I don't care if it's your mama. Sorry, mama, she don't want to go. It may be that she's spoiled. It may be that that they won't let him go play basketball when he wants to, or he got to turn off his game at a certain time. It may be, but what a gamble. What a gamble that you're taking to make that assumption. Because they may never tell you, or they may be like me and break their silence at 33. So we have to pay attention to that. If your kid is crying, whatever that plan was, it should be canceled, period. If your child, in my case, I played the violin, I played the piano, I did drill team, very social. When these things started to happen, because I was holding it inside, and not only was I holding it inside, but I was watching the world around me continue to function as if nothing was wrong. So that was traumatizing as well. For me to be feeling this way the next day after my older cousin touched me, and then to wake up that morning and my mom making grits and my dad walked through the house whistling and everybody's having a good time, and I'm thinking, dang, this doesn't matter at all, okay? So that's traumatizing. I'm sorry, I got a little off the subject. But so pay attention to the change in their behavior. If 1 minute they're doing something, whatever that something may be, and then all of a sudden you look up and you see that your child is doing something the total opposite, now they're kind of quiet. Now they're shy.
98 seconds.
Maybe they're just not showing interest in something that they used to be interested in. Or maybe here's something very common. Your kid just want to keep changing sports. I know a lot of kids do that. Or they want to keep changing what instrument they play, or, different things like that. Those are all signals, and it does not mean that they were sexually assaulted. It doesn't mean that, but it means something. And it shouldn't be ignored, because it could definitely be, they could be that fourth person. So please pay attention to that. My secrets, all the things that I was holding inside of me, it showed up one day. Now we're talking about trauma, PTSD, many other things, but this isn't what this is on, so I'm gonna kind of keep staying in alignment. But many other things happened as a domino effect behind that. One of the first things was me keeping secrets. I became a pro at it. I had to train myself to start asking people questions and answering people questions, because I thought it was normal. You don't ask me nothing, I don't ask you nothing. Seriously, you asking me something, and I'm like, why are you asking me questions? I thought that something was wrong with that. I had became a pro at secrecy. So what happened was, as more things started to happen, because of my low self-esteem, me trying to find a way to exist in this world that I had been thrown in, more and more things started to happen to me. And I just started burying it. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. I'm not talking about it. Ain't nobody asking me about it. It didn't happen. And I'm just moving forward. I reached a crossroad where I could have either went right or I could have went left. I'm seeing people over here. They seem to be pretty successful. They're moving on with their lives. And then I got my people over here. They just smoking weed, and they seem like they might end up living in their mother's basement. So I'm standing at this crossroad like, okay, where do I go? I chose to pick myself up. I chose to heal myself and not be like my friends over here. So I spent, from the age of 16 up to 29, and I spoke about this the other day on the radio, I spent that time just really, really trying to rebuild myself in every way possible. If there was a conference going on, I would go and sit in the back just in hopes to get something to make me feel better, something to heal me. If I didn't have something to wear to church, I would go to church in anything. And I didn't care how people looked at me. I'm in here with my leggings on and my tube top. I need something. And I was searching for it. And for those years, that's what I did. And because I wanted to feel whole, and in my spirit, I knew that I was more than what the world was telling me that I was. But at the age of, okay, I gotta wrap it up. Oh, sure. Oh, she want more. I thought she wanted me to wrap it up. She want more. Okay, so, well, let me rewind. Are you guys staying with me? Yeah, okay, all right, thank you. Let me retract this just a little bit. So, at 15, I decided that I was gonna get a job, okay? I decided I was 14, finna turn 15. I decided I was gonna get a job. So that's another signal. Watch out for this, okay? Now, as I said before, I'm coming from a very strong family, a hard-working family. So they're installing in us, you go to school, you take care of your house, take care of your kids, you get a job, you handle your business, you know? Now, I'm having rocky times because the trauma from with my cousin, which actually caused a blockage in my mind. So now I'm not doing as good in school. So I'm shying to the back of the classroom, not wanting to get called on. I'm falling off on like the instruments and my other activities and stuff. I'm kind of falling off on that. And people, I could see the disappointment in them because they had this high expectation of me. So now I'm just trying to figure out how can I escape this. So I start babysitting. Watch out for that. I start babysitting. I start hanging out with the cousin. Some things happened all up in that area. So now these places ain't that safe no more for me. So now I'm gonna get a job. So if I go to school, I got a job, and then I can sometimes still go by the cousins' houses or whatever. Then I'm at home really just to go to sleep. This is a good plan in my mind. This is a good plan. I can make it to 18, then I'm out of here. Well, the guy that I go to get the job from, he actually raped me that night. And he raped me, and the next day, he never took me to the place to get the job. I don't even know if there was even a job, okay? The next day, when he went to drop me off, he insisted on dropping me off at home. I was so happy that he was releasing me because I actually thought he was gonna kill me. So I let him drop me off at home. More secrets. I didn't tell anybody. It was definitely my fault. I called this man, let him pick me up to go get a job. I keep messing up. I keep putting myself in these positions. I can't tell nobody. And each time it's just getting worse and worse. So I really can't tell nobody. So the week goes by, me not knowing, he was actually stalking me. He catch me coming home, getting off the bus, and throws me in his vehicle and beats me and hold me. He held me for a week or so before I actually saw light, but he still kept me in his possession. So there's another thing for you to watch out for. And I wanted to put emphasis on how long he actually kept me inside, because he did not keep me inside the entire time he had me. We are out in a community and we are seeing young girls with older men and young boys with older women. We have an obligation to say something. I'm not saying put yourself in danger, but this wasn't something that was hidden. This wasn't something that could have been mistaken for anything else. He was holding me on his arm like this. You know what I mean? He was, baby, all at restaurants, different places. So I just want us to, like we were saying, how she was just pointing out earlier, how things are so close to us. It's happening in our face. It's happening with our neighbors. Like, all we have to do is, we see it, but we have to take the veil off. We have to stop turning the other cheek and just being blind to what is happening to our children. I wanted to be a model. And when he found out that I had actually got picked to be a model. The weekend that I was supposed to go to Chicago to walk, do a runway event or something to that effect, he decided that he was going to destroy that for me. And he took me up north to the woods and threw me on a stage and said, if you're going to model for somebody, you're going to model for me. The stage. I've been on many stages. That's actually what has allowed me to be on this platform. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful because although it was a tragedy, but God allowed things to happen, and he brought me through in such a way that I can stand here in front of all of you and help other people. But even then, when I got away from him, I was about 16 years old. And that brings me back to what I was just sharing with you. From 16 to 29, I did everything to rebuild myself. But I did not speak about it. At 29, his name was brought up. I was told that he was being convicted, that he had been convicted by the feds with 14 counts of child sex trafficking and, things of that nature. And I thought that I was healed. I truly did. I did everything that society told me to do, and I felt pretty successful. I thought that I was good. I was fine, in a nutshell. And once that information was brought to me, I started spiraling out of control. It quickly reminded me, no, you're not fine. I started moving, at night when I would go to sleep, I would move chairs in front of my front door, afraid that somebody was going to come in. If I stopped at a red light and a car pulled up on the side of me, I shoot right through the intersection, afraid of anybody getting too close to me. Just hearing his name and what he was doing, continued to do to people, sent me all the way back to that place that I was at when I was 15 years old. Eventually, all of those secrets, it exploded. It exploded inside of me. No, really, it did. I snapped. A young lady began vandalizing my vehicle. I blew her car up. And when I blew it up, I was yelling, y'all is fit to leave me alone. Because in my mind, my entire life, people was doing stuff to me. My entire life, I was just trying to be happy and do me, and people keep coming in my space doing ridiculous stuff. Like, what happened to you just bump a person? Oh, my bad. Or you borrow a shirt and don't return it. No, all the unthinkable things that could be done was getting done to me. And I snapped. And I didn't break my silence until I was sitting in front of a therapist at the age of 33 years old. And ever since then, I've just been telling my story. I feel good about it.
98 seconds.
I feel honored when I look at everything that I've been through. When I look at everything that God's brought me through, I know that this is where I'm supposed to be. I understand now my purpose. Before, I didn't know who I was. I didn't have an identity. I had no idea of who I really was. I mean, I had different things that I was passionate about. I knew certain places that I wanted to go. I definitely knew places that I would never go again. But really connecting my mind, my body, and my spirit, that transition didn't happen for me until I was able to break my silence, until I was able to put all of those things in alignment. Talking, getting help, living healthy, having, a nice healthy routine, eating right, exercising, releasing, when you experience trauma, and whatever that may look like for you, because a lot of times we get caught up in, oh, but that's not my situation. That's not, oh, that wouldn't happen to me. It happened to me. It happened to my parents' kids. I wasn't in foster care. We wasn't on welfare. They wasn't on drugs. I never got a whooping. So the person that the statistics is saying that this happens to, it does not exempt other people. And then I just wanted to share one more thing with you. I just wanted to share about vulnerabilities. When our children go through trauma, and even adults, we're not exempt from it. We get in relationships with men or with women or friendships, and it affects us just as much as kids. And it makes us extremely vulnerable. It made me reach out to people, even with being in fear of being hurt again. That's how vulnerable it made me. It made me continue to reach out to people, searching for something, not even realizing, the thought didn't even cross my mind that you're putting yourself in danger again. You're re-victimizing yourself. Like, that never even crossed my mind. So just, like I said, pay attention to all of the signs that I shared with you. Be very careful with the words that you speak into your kids' life or into the kids' lives that you're dealing with. They're not bad. They're not fast. They're not stupid. They're not any of those things that society has trained you to say that they are, and that is the most challenging part for us as caregivers, care providers. We have to change our own minds. That's what makes it really hard for people to help the kids, because it requires you as the parent, you as the adult, to change yourself. And don't nobody want to change themselves. But you ain't going to be able to help you ain't. But you won't be able to help your kids. You won't be able to help anybody if you don't look in the mirror and start working on yourself. You have to change yourself. You have to change the words you're using, your thoughts, because we can even pick up on your thoughts. So you have to change that. And one more thing before I go, I asked you from the beginning to not judge me, not judge my family. And the reason I said that is because all the people that's out there silent right now, it's one of the reasons that they're silent, because everybody's so judgmental. So when you see them and they're not talking, but they're doing something, don't judge them. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Who's irritated by me saying 98 seconds? Who's irritated? Who's tired of hearing that? Raise your hand. Yes. And 8 minutes. It should be. It should be irritating. Let's not turn off, though. This is how often someone is being sexually abused. Every 8 seconds, it's a child. That is how often, as we go on about our lives, that this is happening around us. I want this to kind of jar you. Exactly. It's like, okay, be quiet. No, let me just watch something else. No, this is happening around us. And we're the gatekeepers. Thank you, Roz. We're the gatekeepers. So before Martha comes up, I just want to talk about the role of the secrets. Yes. Okay. The question was, did you forgive yourself?
I did. I forgave myself. I forgave myself because if I didn't, I was going to continue holding myself there, if that makes sense. I had to take back what was taken from me. And the more I allowed myself to stay in that space, that was me continuing to give them the power, and they didn't deserve it. But in connection to that, I forgave them. I forgave them because what happened was, and that's why I like to say that I love my men, okay? Even though I fell victim to the hands of multiple men, I love them. I was able to look in the eyes of a lot of predators and just people that was not so good and see that they were hurting too, that they were victims of things too. And for me to want people to forgive me and understand my circumstances, I had to be able to do that for them. So I forgave them, I forgave me, and it's light, it's okay.
Okay, we're going to have more questions. We're going to have a Q&A time. We want to just get through the material and talk about the role of secrets so that we can talk about the seamlessness and how these patterns, some patterns, do not all end well, and other things happen in between time. So we want to talk about that because if you're working with individuals who have been sexually abused, many of them are not saying anything because of fear of their predator, their perpetrator. You know, in one of the tactics in talking about patterns, when the trafficker that Roz was involved with through force, fraud, or coercion, he wanted to take her home. Why did he want to take her home? Because that becomes one of the coercive treatments. I know where your mom lives. I know where your father lives. They come in and they show up like boyfriends. They get to know what's happening in the homes. They get to know the vulnerabilities so that they can use that. Many individuals have been sexually abused before. 13 is the average age that girls are trafficked domestically. Many of them have been sexually abused. 13. Who remembers being 13? Yes. It happens very young because you're vulnerable. So those secrets, many people may not be saying much because they're saying it's no one's business. They didn't think it was that serious or wrong. They didn't want their parents to find out. They didn't want their friends to know. So they walk in with these secrets. They didn't want authority to find out. I had the privilege of being in a high school, and I was kicked out of that high school because the social worker basically said, "Thanks a lot. Now I have that much more work to do." I was asked not to return to the school because the social worker did not want to take on that extra work. They don't want anyone to know. They didn't think they would be believed. They have been threatened by the abuser. And interestingly enough, when we think about that, it's usually a family member. And when we break down the family, it's then a parent. And when we break down the parent, it's usually the father. 80% of the time, it's the male. And then that small percentage, 20% of the time, it's a woman. It's the mom. Interestingly enough, 6 out of 1,000 perpetrators do not go to prison. Is that hard to believe? 6 out of 1,000. So some of the work that Martha and I do is we talk to judges. It's important for judges to understand the severity, and there are many that are doing a very good job. We have law enforcement on our team, nurses, doctors, individual social workers that will lift their voice around the plight of sexual abuse, human trafficking, so that we can make a difference. It's not one entity that is going to eradicate human trafficking, that is going to stop the abuse of children, stop children being abused. We're going to have to work together, and we definitely have to care more. Martha Love.
Hello. I told y'all earlier that I was mad, and I want you to be mad. And if we do a good job, fine. If we do a bad job, I don't care what you think, because you're here, and you know how we like to do. Girl, I went to that workshop. I should have stayed at home. But at least you will say you went to the human trafficking workshop, and people will say, what is that? Because human trafficking to the average resident is foreign language. They know pimping and hoeing, prostitutes. So, but I want you to know my heart is full today. I am so happy to see you. I know you will take the message back the way you always do. Thank you for what you do for children. Thank you what you do for boys and girls. Because if you do not help us save this society, which is in the children, I don't know where we're going to be. Like I said, we have a couple of people in this audience that experienced incest at 4 years old. They were handed throughout the family. The mother, the father, the brothers and sisters. People did all kinds of things to these children at 4 and 5 and 6 years old. When they started to go to school, they would tell their teachers about what happened to them. And of course, the teachers didn't have time to take up the problem. And as you know, in a lot of our schools, they took away the school nurse. So there was no one to really help these kids that could not sit still because they were raped at night. Then they had to go to school and try to learn. But they felt like Roz, no one really cared. And why are you asking me these questions? Can you imagine 1 o'clock in the morning, you in the bed, here comes somebody, wants you to manipulate a part of their body, having sex. Now let me tell you something else. Women, I'm mad with y'all because you are now 50% pimps in this city. Women are nurturing and know how to gather and convince boys and girls to do what they want them to do. Women can be a very, very dangerous species to this society. You're bottom bitches with the pimps, you're making the money, and you're destroying this society as the pimps. But I want to say one good thing right now, and this may be the only good thing. Judge Donald put away last Friday a pimp. Gave him 15, he had 3 counts, 15, 15, and 15 years in jail, and then 10 years probation. When he's now 31 years old. Hooray, he'll be old and tired and ugly when he get out of jail. And I hope what he did to these 8 and 9-year-olds, selling them in this society, I hope he realized the destruction he has caused in his 31 years. He didn't have a history of incest in his family. He just decided, I ain't gonna work. They're gonna fall in love with me, and I'm gonna put them out there. And then encouraging the children that it's okay. It's okay. I want you to know that there's another person among us. She wants her story to be told, but she cannot do it today. She was 5 years old. They started passing her around as well. She got a little bit older, 7. She had started to develop. When she got 14, she was real developed. She said, I'm making a decision. I am tired of not being able to sleep. I am tired of manipulating organs. I am tired of being abused, so she ran away at 14. So when she ran away, she ran into someone that loved her, that took her to Chicago, put her in a high-rise, put her in a room, and she serviced about 10 to 15 men and women a day. I want you to be angry. I want you to understand what sexual violation is, the fraud, the coercion, the pain, being chained to a basin, face bowl. That's what she told us. These stories come from people, like I said, some are here. This has been their journey. I met them. Dana and I met them. And what I heard, I couldn't believe, between all the tears, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Not our city. I could not believe what I heard. But they told me in this group, and it was a group of prostitutes support group. But they weren't prostitutes, they were human trafficked. This is where people, as one woman described it, took my soul. Took my soul. I couldn't have a purse. She couldn't have a telephone unless the phone was to get a message from a John for her to service, or a madam for her to service. Women are in this deal 50%. This industry, human trafficking, is $150 billion around the world. When Dana and I first started doing the community outreach around human trafficking, as she indicated, the average age was 13 years old. You could be black, white, green, or orange. You could live in the suburbs. You could live in the rural area. It made no difference. It was on Backpage. Through a number of task force, we were able to get Backpage shut down. We were able to get a number of credit card companies not to accept the charges from certain areas because there were children involved. None of these people agreed to be a commercial sex person. We have people 3 years old that have been exploited because that's the market. We have a market. These are not people, these are products. Products. These are not humans. These are products that's created by men and women in this community. Now, 2017, the average age for someone to be human trafficked is 8 years old. What do you think about that? Do you like that? So I say to you today, you have to take a pledge, whether you want to or not. And I know y'all think I'm being mean, but y'all got to hear me. I get a chance to talk about this with all of y'all. You got to, I'm going to make you hear me because I need your help. The community needs your help. And we always say, what can we do? As Dana says all the time, if you see something, say something and do something. And that old saying about what goes on in the house, you got to tell it. We can't keep it. You have to tell it. 98 seconds. So anyway, what I want you to do is I want you to take a pledge. I want you to say that you will help this society rid itself of human trafficking, or we will try to do as much outreach as we can to make sure people understand we're not going to stand for our children to be hurt anymore. Now, I know that was long, but do you pledge? Yes. Do you pledge? Yes. Thank you. So these women that experience incest, and like a lot of the traffickers say, Dana had a long 2-hour conversation with one of the pimps. And he said to Dana, I like them when they've been abused. They perform better. They follow instruction better. I like them when they've been raped. Then they start to understand clearly the game of what their responsibility is. And if they don't follow through, they are beaten. One woman told us about how her teeth were pulled with pliers because she didn't conform. 98 seconds. I've never been in a situation like that, and no one will ever put me in that situation, and now I'm old, so you know I ain't going there. But I will say to you, sometimes there's people that look strong, and this ain't gonna happen to me, and it happens. And it happens. They bully children, women are bullied, men are bullied, nobody wants to talk about it, society don't want to talk about it. Then they say, oh, that's a minority thing to be trafficked. You a black girl, you a black boy. That's why you're trafficked. No. You're in poverty. No. It's about power and control and who can make the money. Mequon, Brookfield, Oshkosh, all over. Kenosha, Waukesha, Brookfield, all over this state and all 72 counties, we have human trafficking taking place. We have people forcing our boys and girls into trafficking. Now, these kids go to school because they're programmed. 98 seconds. Each boy or girl yield in a year $250,000. So if a pimp has 6, you see why they shine. But the question is, who are the pimps? What do they, the first thing people say is, what do they look like? You know what they look like? All of you. All of you. That's what pimps look like. They don't have the hats cocked to the side and the long suits and what have you. They don't have that anymore. They have the sagging pants. They have whatever we see in society. That's what they look like. We, as Dana said, is Judge Weiler here? The judge is not here, but we do have a lot of judges that for been about 9 years, right, Dana, that we have been doing outreach around human trafficking. And one thing we had to learn the language. You know, we're in there talking all, you know, saying something and no one was understanding what we're saying. That's why I want to be real clear. We're talking about pimps and hoes and children being raped. We're talking about bottom bitches. We're talking about people that do destruction to our children's minds. But we do have judges that understand what this all is. And so our judicial system, they are quite educated about the signs of human trafficking. Before a person could come in and say they were involved in a domestic violence situation. But the judges now start probing, asking those questions. Roz talked about secrets. Dana talked about secrets. And a lot of times when a person is having problems, they will only answer the questions you ask them. So you have to probe now. You can't just ask the question and think you're going to get the full story, because these journeys are deep. Our young people are taken away from Milwaukee, and they're taken all over the country, Vegas, Utah, just all over. They are forced 10 to 15 episodes of sexual encounter a day. Our doctors are now being trained to recognize a lot of the signs. Our pastors are being taught. Our U.S. attorneys, his name is Joseph Wall, as we struggle with the city of Milwaukee continuing to close the strip clubs. And by the way, the strip clubs is where the pimps take the girls so that they can start learning how to date. And the strip clubs have a lot of influence. They got a lot of people in there with a lot of money. They have a great deal of influence. So if people wonder why you see me and Dana screaming about, no, don't open the strip clubs, because it is a gateway to human trafficking. It is a gateway. We don't want it downtown. If it's downtown, you know it's coming to our neighborhood, right? We don't want it anywhere around. And a lot of the strippers in the clubs, a number of them are forced to be there, to work for a little of nothing. So that's why we are take a critical eye as it relates to the strip clubs. And some people, you know, they think going to the strip clubs, having a good time, and seeing these women stripped down to nothing is okay. But you have to think about the individual as a person. As Dana has talked with a lot of Johns, I can't stand him. I don't talk to him. I hate him. And I'm sorry, I hate him. I don't talk to him. She's got the patience. I don't. Pastor Dana, not me. And so she finds out that a lot of these Johns don't look at this piece of person as anything other than power and control and someone to have sex with. That's all they look at. They don't look at the individual. They don't look in their eyes. And as you see a lot of girls and boys that are forced to have sex with many partners, they always have their heads down. They walk with their heads down. They never make eye contact. And let me tell you, these sex workers are beaten unmercifully. This guy that just went to jail, I'm not going to call his name. I guess I will say JR. He was so mean and evil to the sex workers. And you may have read this in the newspaper. When the woman was fixing herself a peanut butter sandwich, she's making $2,000 a night. And he would only give her a peanut butter sandwich. And because she was making noise with the knife, getting the peanut butter out of the jar, he beat her unmercifully. This is what I asked you to pledge because I want you to help get this word out that human trafficking is real. They're not seen as people having any kind of background. And in your circles, in your book clubs, at the gym, whatever it is, where you go, there's a lot of people. You got to start having these discussions. It used to be a time when we would talk about children not having breakfast before they go to school. There was a time we would say children didn't have lunch. So we said they could not function well and they couldn't learn. But now we have children that are up all night being forced in the commercial sex world. And as Rod said, they get irritated. You wonder why in wraparound and foster care and other places where we have a lot of our children, why they're so difficult, they're so complex. They're complex, as Rod said, because they cannot identify what has happened to them. Oh, I love you, but then when you don't bring the right money in, I'm gonna beat you to death. Then society says, I don't respect you because you a hoe. You a prostitute. We have no respect for you. But anyway, I want you to know on this journey that Dana and I and several other women in this community and men, our ultimate aim is to educate our community about human trafficking and making sure that people understand these victim survivors or survivor learners, leaders, come from a family, and applaud them if you see them out somewhere. Applaud them for having it together on this particular day to come and tell their stories. To tell their stories. So, one last thing, a number of the women and men that are pimped out, they indicate they don't want to have anything to do with the police. And Dana and I say, you got to, because this is the only way that we can help you help yourself. Well, apparently a lot of them have had interaction with the police, and so they don't trust the police. But we have a lot of police persons that are doing great work around human trafficking. They will call Dana and let Dana know we got this 14-year-old. They will call Dana and let her know we have this 17-year-old. And 98 seconds. In the life, they start out at 8 years old, and at 17, they're in retirement. And they're in retirement either on crack, heroin, or cocaine, or they're in the mental hospital, or they're in a state of mind that is so unmanageable, they don't know what to do in life, and there's suicide. So I will say to you, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you being here. My heart is full. I don't want to start crying. I mean, there's a lot of you here that can tell a lot of stories about whether we did a good job today or if we did a bad job. And like I told you, I don't care. Because as long as you talk about it, that's what I want you to do, is talk about it. Thank you so much for your attention.
Awesome. We want to leave time for your questions and to have Q&A. Also want you to know that human trafficking is third to guns and drugs. And our task was to talk about those risk patterns. We know for sure that individuals that have familial child abuse, many of them, not all, because I know you can tell your story, but many of them do have a continual pattern that leads to human trafficking. And in such a way, as Martha said, that the traffickers are looking for individuals that have experienced incest, that have experienced it at the hand of their father, their grandfather, their uncle. And that's why you may see someone with a tattoo on that says daddy. Call me daddy. If your daddy never took care of you, I'll take care of you. You're my property now. So it's guns, drugs, and then human trafficking. You buy a gun, you sell a gun. You buy drugs, you sell drugs. But when you purchase a human, you can continue to sell them over and over and over again. So they're making a lot of money on the backs of our girls and boys. And I don't want you to forget the LGBT community. I want you to think about homelessness, those who are homeless, runaways. Within 48 hours, you tend to find that someone has connected them to a groomer. We're learning about the lizards, the trucking industry, how if a person is being serviced, or if that trucker has already been serviced, you know what I mean? They may put a roll of tissue in their window or drop it right outside their door. That means I'm good. So there's a lot to learn, and we're continuing to be met with these intersections that open up the world of human trafficking, and learning about child sexual exploitation is paramount. So you that interact with children, I hope that you have a greater understanding of what our world is looking like and how you can affect and better affect the children that you work with. Can you tell me something you've learned? One thing. Yes, ma'am. Rosalind? Yes. Yes. Consistency is paramount. How much do you care? Not how much do you know, but how much do you care? And a person will then begin to open up. Can you share with us something else that you've learned, or do you have a question? We have a few more minutes. Yes, ma'am. Listening to the students is important. Well, what you're to tell the students is that if you can have real talk with them, that authority is taking advantage of them, that they should not be touched, looking at pornography, however they may be stimulated. And then if that is indeed the fact, take it to the authority. Tell someone. Someone will believe you. And it doesn't matter if it's the priest, the rabbi, the youth leader, it doesn't matter. Take that to the authority. There's we call her our angel, who is now a lieutenant with MPD, but she said no incident is too small or too large. She said, if you see something, say something, report it. So if you're seeing something that should not be going on in the schools, report it. If the parents don't believe it, I would still record it, and then you take it to the higher authority. I mean, you have to some of us are mandated reporters, so you must tell, at least record it. And if they're a minor, yes, it's in the parent's hands, but so that the child knows that someone cares, be honest and upfront with them. Did you want to add something else?
I was just going to say, as the mandated reporter, that should tell.
Anything else? What else did you, yes, ma'am?
As far as the sex trafficking goes, I know that's happening here in the U.S., it's happening in the state, it's also happening internationally. I'm just wondering why don't you hear about it as much? I mean, I understand this is going on a lot, but it doesn't, according to the media, it doesn't seem to be happening as much as the big drug bust that happens in California or that happens in Miami. You don't hear about these people that are getting caught with 6 children that are doing sexual activity. I'm just curious as to why.
And I would say that it's very interesting that some people don't hear it, and that's why we're here, and that's why now you know, because now you can share it. Because not knowing what to look for, you'll never see it. But as you become exposed to it, you're going to begin to see it all over. It's going to become very apparent. And I don't know, I think it's just a matter of listening to the news at the right time, asking your friends to send you articles, because we're working on this 24/7, you know? So the more people that will share, the more it will spread. And they do have stings, so that's happening on a regular basis. Milwaukee has a human trafficking unit, not very large, but they do have a unit. And since our start, Kenosha now has a coalition. Washington County has a coalition. Racine, La Crosse has a coalition. Appleton has a coalition. Milwaukee is considered the Harvard of pimp school. Wisconsin, the hub of human trafficking. So something is going on here. And the conversations with the traffickers, some of them are OGs. They've been to prison and now they're back and they want to help. But it's interesting to note that without us knowing, this underground system is very, very strong. So we've been busting that up, which has been very positive. Simone? Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And to that point, the media, in the beginning, we had to kind of teach them how to ask questions instead of just putting a mic in front of a survivor's face. Tell me how many people you slept with. How does this affect you? Just really idiotic questions that are not sensitive. So we had to work and train them on, and vet them really. Why do you want the story? Right now, in my inbox, Channel 12. They're saying, okay, let's finish this story. So there are people, last week, Nancy Yarbrough was on Channel 6. So there are people doing different things. Now that our eyes are open, we just have to pay attention. Absolutely, and it's far beyond that. That was 9 years ago. Now we're looking at $150 billion. And it's an underground system, so there's far more money in this industry. Another question, yes. Outreach programs. What are some outreach programs that you all are involved in? Simone? Foundations for Freedom. The Boys and Girls Club, they do a lot of work around human trafficking. So it really just depends on Pearls for Teen Girls. Any others? Any other questions? Yes, UMOS, absolutely. And there are some efforts on the south side. Inner Beauty also is on the south side. 16th Street Clinic, they come to our task force all the time. So just different places of interaction and intersection, we want those organizations to be equipped. Yes. Yes. For those of you who work in the industry, and we don't say this publicly, but we would love for you to come and join the Human Trafficking Task Force. The task force is the community response to eradicating human trafficking, and we do that through coordinated services, policy and legislation, and education and awareness. We meet the fourth Tuesday of every month, and we do meet during the day. It's from 2 until 4. We're averaging about 40 individuals that come on a regular basis. And we started, you know, with a group of people. Now they're out doing the work, and it's a constant rubbing of the elbows and sharpening one another. We come and we learn at the task force meetings, and then we go out to do the work. So you're welcome to come. You're all welcome. And probably what you should do is send me an email at httf://milwchair@gmail.com, and then I'll send you the location. httf://milwchair@gmail.com. Any other questions? Did you learn something? Did you learn something? Questions? HTTF, Human Trafficking Task Force, MILW, chair, CHAIR@gmail.com. It's a heavy subject to talk about, but I'm glad that you stayed the course and you didn't turn off, because now that you know, continue to learn and to grow, and so that you can speak into the issue. The greatest thing, remember that the young people, they don't care how much you know. They want to know how much you care. So if you don't have the full knowledge to be able to help them through a situation, then call on someone that does. But you stay there and be consistent with them, even if it seems that they're acting out. You caring will make a difference. I appreciate you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much.
I hope everyone is enjoying themselves. I just